Three friends boarded Disney's galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Bright Suns Galactic Starcruiser superfans, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge only, Galactic Starcruiser superfan podcast on the interwebs. I'm Galactic Starcruiser superfan Martin, and with me, as always, are...
Superfan Drew.
And Superfan Christine.
Well, we have got an international segment for everyone today. Christine, can you tell us all about it?
Yes, today we were able to talk to Phil with HE Creative. And if you haven't seen their stuff, oh my goodness.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, head to Instagram to find them and also head to their website at HE Creative. Creative doesn't even cover it.
The art is just spectacular.
Oh, yeah. It's super fun. It's very whimsical is one word I'd use. It's really kind of, and we talk a lot about it in this episode, so it's really fun.
And they have started producing Galactic Starcruiser art, which is amazing.
Yeah, it was limited, so I don't know if they'll have it again, but man, do I hope they will, because there was a lot of good stuff there.
It was Insta-buys for us.
Yes, it was.
About all the things.
But before we get started with the episode, Christine, we've actually got a little road trip for Heroes of the Halcyon planned. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so Saturday, March 25th, we are headed to Batu West.
Woohoo!
So if you happen to be going to Disneyland that day or going to be in the Disneyland area, please come visit us. You will easily be able to spot us in our Here's the Halcyon t-shirts.
Indeed.
We'll be on Instagram, playing around a bit with Instagram Live. So yes, make sure if you see us in the park, please stop and say hi.
And as always, before we get started, we would like to send a thank you out to our patrons at patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon. Your support is greatly appreciated. You really do help us produce this content, and we thank you very much.
And another thing everyone can do to support the show is to go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review. That really does help people find this show. Or you can actually subscribe to us on Instagram, YouTube, and of course your favorite podcast channels. But now, let's go Starcruising with Phil at HE Creative. Well, Phil, welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Awesome.
Amazing, and just enjoying the fact that we get to talk to somebody else about Starcruiser.
Well, we know that it's extremely early in life. This is what, 2 a.m. for you right now?
It's 2 a.m. I've been up since super early to watch Mando.
Of course.
And then it's been good staying up because I've watched it again twice.
Star Wars superfan certified.
Yes, indeed.
Well, there's a question we kind of like to ask all of our guests, just to kind of introduce you to our audience, is what is your Star Wars origin story?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to being 6 years old and then sitting in front of the TV on a shag carpet in the late 80s, playing with my cousin's Star Wars figures, watching Return of the Jedi. Probably my earliest memory, other than, I guess, like my granddad dying, and then that are like my earliest memories. So maybe I was like 6 years old and seeing the Rancor. My biggest Star Wars memory is the lightsaber coming out of R2-D2, Luke catching it, which I actually have a tattoo of. Yeah, and the green lightsaber. That's probably my earliest memories, and then the speeder bike chase and anything related to Endor. It's probably my earliest memories.
Did you have a favorite action figure when you were growing up?
Same question.
Yeah, weirdly, the pop-up lightsaber R2-D2.
Absolutely awesome figure.
And the Jedi Luke figure.
The pop-up lightsaber, it kind of looks like a bat rather than a lightsaber, but the effect is so cool. They had to fit a lightsaber and decide R2, but a great choice.
So currently, what's your favorite medium to consume Star Wars? There's so much available.
Yeah, that's super tough. And I've listened to like every episode of the podcast and what other people say, and I guess it, like, for me, like, I kind of want to say everything.
You can, that works.
Everything. I'm a huge sequels fan. I'm a huge fan of Rey. She's probably my favorite Star Wars character. I adore her. So the sequels have got a big place in my heart. But then I also love every TV show they put out. I love all the animation. Like, I always say to my buddy Nick, from the Fake the Maker podcast, I'd never seen a Star Wars I didn't like. So not to be super posy about it, but yeah, just like it all.
We understand.
Oh, we understand completely. Are you kidding me? Of course. You had corresponded with us very early on in the podcast history, and we went to your Instagram page and immediately saw all the amazing art that you produce, along with your Star Wars origin story. I'm curious about your artistic origin story.
Yeah. I don't know, I don't ever remember a time I wasn't drawing. It was always something that I did. There's two moments that really stick out in my mind. I remember drawing a picture of a cowboy, and I wanted to do a stubbly beard, and I dotted the pencil, and I was quite small. I was probably about 7 years old, and I remember all the adults being impressed that I'd done that.
Yeah.
And that really stuck out in my memory, oh, I'm onto something here. I can impress adults with this. And then my mum tells me that in England, we have when you have a baby, as they're developing, social workers come to visit. And they wanted me to draw a face in a circle, and I wouldn't do it. And my mum was like, just give him paper. And I wanted the face to be oval shaped before I'd draw in it. So those were the kind of a told memory and an actual memory of adults being impressed with what I was doing. So I guess a validation growing up, because I didn't do sports or anything, that was, oh, people will like me because I can draw. And then my biggest memory of wanting to be an artist was going to Disney World in 1994 and going in MGM to the animation studios when you could walk around and seeing all the toys on the desks of the animators. Oh, and that's the only bit I wanted. I was like, oh, they put toys on their desk. I want to have a desk with toys on. And that was it. And now I do. And that's the thing I wanted. The art side of it, I didn't really, that was a secondary thought. So just how do I get this job where I can have toys
sure.
on the desk?
I still want that job. The toys I have on my desk aren't nearly as fun, but that would be nice.
Well, besides the art, I mean, there's so many cool aspects of you. Where did your love of music come from?
Oh, I mean, it's always been there. My great aunt was a quite renowned jazz singer. So we grew up with jazz in the house. And then my dad's brother was part of the punk scene in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, okay.
He went to school with members of the Sex Pistols. He roadied for the Clash. And so that music was always around. And it was kind of the soundtrack to my childhood. It comes hand in hand with East London, Essex, football terraces, the ska sound. And it was always on, when you think back and you trace these things back, old sitcoms, British sitcoms would have ska in the background, or maybe a punk sound because they were made in that era when punk was become mainstream. And so that sound was always there. When I was a teenager, I remember seeing Green Day and Blink-182 and loving those bands. And then I was put on the TV and was flicking through MTV, and I saw for the first time the Clash.
Oh, okay.
And I'd always heard the Clash, but I saw the video for London's Calling, and Joe Strummer's got this great big guitar that looks like a piano that he's playing. And I was just that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it kind of mixes jazz and punk, the jazz aesthetic with the punk music. For some reason, I was just switched on from that minute, that those big hollow body guitars, the look of punk. And like anyone, I think the look of punk and the ideology of punk draws people to it more than the music, which is, can be pretty terrible. And that kind of drew me to it. And then it kind of comes back to Star Wars. I loved Blink-182 growing up. And you get to that age when you're a teenager and you pack your things away, your toys, and all my Star Wars things have gone away. And then they have a song called A New Hope, which is about being in love with Princess Leia. And I was like, oh no, Star Wars is cool. These guys like Star Wars. And then it all kind of came back out again. Because it was you were told, it was okay.
You had permission to enjoy this stuff again.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's fantastic. And just music is just a worldwide unifying force. I mean, we went to London with one of our mutual friends, and we went to Ministry of Sound, and it was just like a pilgrimage for him. What a cool story to see how it all kind of comes back to Star Wars.
It always does. So, what is your current inspiration for your art?
I mean, it changes daily.
Sure.
My biggest influences are always anything 1960s, mid-century. The kind of that era of the Disney studios are a massive influence to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the artist Mary Blair, most famous for It's a Small World.
Right.
And Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. She's my biggest influence. So colour is a really big part of our work and stuff. I've got old Archie-looking comics and that kind of thing, what we're best known for, and lots of like crying girls. Like a lot of our posters are like women crying, girls crying, which I don't really know where that comes from. But I guess like I'm really into, this sounds so pretentious, but I'm really into juxtaposition in my work. Mm-hmm. So mixing punk with like really feminine imagery. Mm-hmm. I really I really think that's like interesting. Yeah, I think that's like my biggest influence. But we've just come back from Disney World, and I guess that is currently on my mind at the moment. And like a lot of that influences what I'm currently interested in. But then I'm also massively influenced by the children's TV show Bluey at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like wholesomeness is really like something I'm really into at the moment, and trying to make all like working for bands and trying to make the work super wholesome. Because again, the juxtaposition. But yeah, I mean, that's the most pretentious thing probably anyone's ever said on this podcast.
No, I don't think so at all. And just being familiar and perusing your catalog that you show on Instagram, I can see the juxtaposition in many different ways. I mean, I'm not a sophisticated art connoisseur, but seems like the juxtaposition of using some of the Archie styling for some of the punk band style stuff. Also, you had a series where about Alphabet of Punk. Is that correct? Is that what that series was?
Yeah, they're the children's books we put out. Yeah, again, taking a band like Black Flag and putting them in a children's book to me is super funny.
Yeah, that's very funny.
And also, it's subversive, but not in a harmful way.
Right.
I guess, like in a wholesome way.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is with punk is it takes itself very, very seriously, but it's silly songs. Mm-hmm. Silly songs by silly men for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's all like it needs to be kind of treated with that pantomime that it is, of like how silly it is that these boys are hairspraying their hair up and then singing songs about like silly things. And, it's there's lots of punk that's very important. But what's very interesting is, and this is like, again, it comes back to Star Wars. And I know like a lot of Star Wars fans will be very angry when I say this, but Star Wars really is films about women and how powerful women are. And punk also is that same thing. So punk is at its best when it's women making the music. It's at its very best when it's non-white women making the music, because it's all about being an outcast, an outsider, which white cis men aren't. So by default, white cis men are the problem. So to listen to them shout and scream about their ideologies and things is quite funny, because they're making music for outsiders, but they're not, so by design. So to juxtapose, like taking the Archie spin, or inspired by that stuff, to me it's very, very funny to take Betty and Veronica and draw artwork where they hate Archie and just think he's a loser, because the way they're drawn in the 60s, I don't think that two girls that look like that would be interested in Archie in the slightest bit to begin with. It's very, very funny to me that he is a loser, and to put him in today's standards. So I do think I just think it's funny to kind of look at punk in that kind of like light-hearted way and treat it that way, unless it's women making the music, and then we take it very, very seriously.
Gotcha.
Which
That's
upsets people.
Well, along the themes of the art, one of the things that you've done recently is you produced a series of pieces that harken back to the Starcruiser. And what made you decide to add that to your collection?
Oh, it's mad. It's a mad story.
Oh,
And it kind of ties into other things we talk about, but it's so weird. From listening to this podcast and from talking to some other people I know that do LARPing, everybody said to me, go in with your real name. It's incredibly powerful. And if you haven't tried it yet, I beg you almost to try to do this for your future cruises. Hearing the characters say your name is outrageous. It will stay with me forever. Ray said my name.
oh,
And it was just everything I'd always wanted. Well, everything I always wanted, everything from the last 15 years that movie came out, but
yeah.
or however long, 10 years ago. But it was unbelievable, the sensation. So we took that one step further. So we designed characters, and I messaged you about this, how we were going to do this kind of Disney-bound thing that we were going to do with the Sleeping Beauty characters of Aurora and Prince Philip, because my name's Philip, so we tied that in, and we were like, oh, this is clever. And then people said on this podcast, use your name, and then we'd heard it from other people. And we were like, right, we're going to strip this right back. Let's go one step further. Let's use our name, but let's use our real jobs as our backstory.
Okay.
So we're going to be poster designers
Nice.
in that world. And then we were watching Andor, and Coruscant is literally filmed 20 minutes from our house. So we were like, well, we'd be from Coruscant because we literally are.
You are, yes.
We grew up around Coruscant, right? So we'll be middle class from Coruscant, poster designers. This all kind of, and it will just be us. So we get on the ship. The first person we interacted with was Sandro. He asked us, I mean, I don't want to be too crude. My wife found this very funny. He asked us what music we liked. I told him I was a big fan of jizz, which is in English slang very, very funny.
Okay.
And my wife was like, I can't believe you said that to somebody. And we spoke to him, and he asked us what music we liked. And we said, oh, Max Rebo and these people. So he started talking to us about the art, the musical acts in Star Wars, and asked us about Gaia. And then when we interacted with Rafe, we kept the same story up. And he said, oh, what do you do? And we said, oh, we're poster designers. We work for musicians. And Rafe looked me dead in the eye and said, you did the poster for Max Rebo. I have that up in my
Oh, that's awesome.
Unbelievable.
And then from there, he was like, I tell you what, we'll set something up and I'll get you to do a poster for Gaia.
Oh,
and every time we interacted with him, he mentioned it. And the captain mentioned it. Oh, you should speak to Rafe. You should do posters for Gaia. You should do this. So when we got back, we did it.
Yeah.
We continued our story.
Oh, that's so awesome. And they're fabulous. I mean, just and they're different styles. I mean, I love the Sandro tour poster.
They're all parodies of other posters.
Okay.
So the Gaia crying is one of my own posters. It's the poster I did for Phoebe Bridgers, which is what we're most known for. And then the Sandro poster is the Woodstock poster.
Oh, okay.
Got the guitar with a bird on it, but we changed it to a porg.
Porg, yep.
The Wonnie poster is a John Lennon poster. Or it was like a poster of the Beatles, but it's the John Lennon part of that poster.
Okay.
Because I like the psychedelics in the eyes. And then the one of Gaia singing is actually Tiana from Princess and the Frog.
Ah, I see it now. I see it.
From the Almost There scene.
Okay.
Which I drew that before we went on the Starcruiser, just in boredom.
Did you get to share any of the art that you said you drew that one before you went? Did you get to share that with the cast or?
Yes. So no, because we were planning to make like postcards and take them, but because we're like independent artists, we were super busy before we left.
Right.
And we just didn't have time to prioritize anything other than costumes and kind of getting on it.
Oh, well, they're incredible. I'm just impressed. They're very, very neat.
As much as I love just the art speaks for themselves, but to know the story behind it makes me love them even more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That is just incredible. Well, Phil, one question that I'm kind of curious is, when did you first hear about the Galactic Starcruiser experience? And when you did hear about it, were you in it right away, or did you kind of wait and see what it was going to be about? Or
so we heard about it from D23, sat watching it, the live stream here, and instantly wanted to go. But did it get announced at the same time as Galaxy's Edge?
They did.
the whole thing together.
It was more of a hotel thing, and they announced back then. Yeah,
no name,
Yeah.
no details, but there was a Star Wars hotel experience.
Yeah. So we were like, 100% we want to do that. And then we go to LA a lot for work. So in 2018, when Galaxy's Edge opened, we were going for work anyway, and we got 2 slots to go when it was open for 4 hours, and you got like a time limit. So we did one early morning, one evening in Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, so we did that, fell in love with Batu. And then our friend's a cast member, and we've got a lot of Star Wars community friends. And then when Rise of the Resistance opened, we went back just to do that for the week it opened in February, and then COVID happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Straight after that. And then we were like, well, we definitely want to do this hotel whenever that opens in Florida. We're always going to Disney. So we were saving money for that. We'd previously, before we'd done the Batu trips, we'd visited every Disney park in the world. So we kind of were ticking bucket list things off. And then we did a Disney cruise during COVID, because they came to England to do these little COVID cruises.
Yep.
We were like, that's the best thing we've ever done with Disney. And then they announced it was like the Starcruising. And we were like, well, if it's half as good as a cruise, we're going on this.
Yes.
And then they announced what it was. And I said to my wife, that sounds like the worst thing I could possibly imagine. I can't imagine anything worse than them putting a bunch of people in a hotel and making them play along with a story. And I was like, because there's going to be that person that's like, Ray's trying to do something. They're jumping up on a table with a lightsaber, swinging it around.
Right.
And you know what? I mean, it just sounded like something the comic book guy from Simpsons would be doing. It just sounded awful. I was like, the state of the Star Wars community at that time, as well, before like Mando and everything, I was like, this just sounds awful. Like, I was like, good luck with that. And then and also they announced, like, when they first announced it, they were like, they were going to give you costumes to wear. We were like, oh, this just sounds awful. Like, what a crock. So we were not in then at all. And then more stuff started to come out of it. And we were like, oh, no, actually, this looks kind of cool, when it was like there. And then we were back in, kind of. And then our buddy Nick from Fake the Maker went. And he was like, whatever you do, you have to do this. He was like, I cried. It was amazing. And we were like, oh, God, this is amazing. Like, okay, we're fully back in. So then we started saving money we kind of had the money saved. But from like the first cruises, the first announcement, we let them go. Because if we know anything about Disney from all our experience going, you do not want to be the first people doing something with Disney. You want to be in the sweet spot of the first year when it's the full experience before they make cutbacks, but not straight away when they're finding their feet. So we were like, right, we're going to hang out. And then we had a friend go in April, and they were like, best thing I've ever done my whole life. So I said to my wife, like, we were in, and I said, oh, it's so much money, because we didn't want to split a cabin, so we were paying the full money. And they said, look, I'll rationalise it by the new dates come out tomorrow. If there's one on my birthday, we'll do it. And there was literally, my birthday was the second day.
Oh, that's great.
On the cruise. And then I phoned up and I said, how much is it? And they told me, and I was like, oh my God, so much money. And then I said, is there any around that date cheaper? And they were like, no, this is the cheapest one for the year. So I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll do it. And then the guy on the phone was like, do you want to do Captain's Table? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And then we ended up being on the cheapest and emptiest cruise they've ever done.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool.
I got to tell you that if the crew, if the voyage isn't completely to capacity, you get more time with the characters.
Oh, yeah.
I'd much rather be on an emptier cruise than a completely full cruise any day.
Yeah, we were on with 100 people. So there's 98 others. And then we did watching back of our videos from muster, there was something like 20 babies that were counted in that number. There was a bunch of grumpy teenagers that didn't take part. And out of the adults, I think a third of the adults took part. In fact, I was the last person. I closed down the sublight lounge by myself at 11:30.
Wow.
Everyone else had gone to bed.
Wow.
Well,
Well, when we get to the spoiler section, I can't wait to hear the stories you have from the cast, because you must have had a lot of dedicated exposure, so that would have been fun.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
kind of interesting to hear your responses about, when you heard about Star Cruiser, because people forget that this was years of drawn out drips of information,
Concept art, and then just basic bare bones stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was years before we even saw the first concept art.
Right.
And I will say the concept art was a big turning point for us.
Well, early on, there was that one photo of the lobby,
Right.
and it was really abstract, so it was really kind of hard to see. You could see that, and they I think it had a window into space,
Right.
and it was really basic, but still, that was exciting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Do you remember actually?
Have you ever looked in? Sorry, have you ever looked into Disney's idea of a themed room at like the other resorts? Like when they do like a Cars room or a Princess and the Frog room?
Yeah.
Who would want to stay in them?
Right.
Like they're awful. They're awful rooms. And like my whole thing was, it's going to be a hotel, and it's going to be like big Star Wars props, like kind of like Pop Century, and then they're going to have a Star Wars poster in the room, and they're going to charge you like. And I just thought it'd be like, I don't know if you're aware of like the Miracosta at Disney Sea, where it's kind of in the park, or
yes.
the Disneyland Hotel.
Yes.
I just thought it'd be like that.
Okay.
Like, we stayed at the Disneyland Hotel in Paris, and you're in the park.
Yeah.
In the park, air quotes. We thought that was just going to be it. So Galaxy's would just have a hotel with an entrance thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, oh, that's cool. And we were kind of into that. But it was when they said, we're going to put you in there, we're all going to make you play along in a costume we're giving you. We were just like, oh, God, imagine the people that are going to be doing this.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of them, unfortunately. But yeah.
So remind me, when was your voyage?
So it was February 6th.
Okay.
This year.
So very recent.
Well, let's actually step back for just a moment. And as a creative professional, what do you think about the work that Disney has done regarding Galactic Star Cruiser?
So having done, I think we're pretty much like allowed to call ourselves experts at this point with Disney, because we've done everything they have to offer.
Yeah, you've seen all the parks, sure.
I've seen it all, and the boats and whatnot. It is the best thing they've ever done from a creative viewpoint. Like, they haven't done anything better than it. The Star Cruiser is a really sad thing in a way, because it doesn't photograph as well as it looks.
Yeah.
So the windows out to space, the atrium, don't photograph, but also the reason the Star Cruiser gets the kind of hatred it gets is because it's expensive. But there's other things Disney offer that are just as expensive or more expensive that don't get the hatred. So they're in a weird spot with it. But I don't know if you've ever seen the film Good Will Hunting, but in that movie, Robin Williams says, you may have seen the Sistine Chapel in a book, but you've not been in the Sistine Chapel. You haven't smelt the Sistine Chapel. You haven't experienced it. And that's the issue with Star Cruiser. So Star Cruiser's best marketing tool is for you to do it and go, oh, well, I get it, right? But they don't want you to do it. So unless they took up groups of people when everyone's in Batu to show them round, like kind of like a timeshare sale, but then you're still not experiencing it. So from a creative side, when you look at it as a creative, it's kind of this weird riddle to look at, because it's the best thing they've ever done, but they don't know how to do anything with it to market it. Like, Disney have no idea how to market it.
Yes.
They completely dropped the ball. Disney don't really know how to deal with Star Wars as a brand, marketing-wise, in the slightest bit. But then it's really hard, because when you're pleased with it, as we all are, everyone's going to say to you who's a naysayer, well, of course you feel that way. You paid $5,000 to do it.
Interesting perspective.
You're an idiot. You're a fool. You've fallen for their trick. You paid the money, and now you're lying to yourself that it was good. And that's the response you'll get. But the only way you can change those people's mind is for them to do it, but they're never going to do it.
They're not going to, right?
But from a creative, and going in there as a creative person, it's wonderful. Like it's a magical, and it's so weird. So like two things came to mind when I was there. The first is when you drive in and you see Batu on sticks,
Yeah.
and they show you how they're doing the trick, and then when you go to Batu, you go, I'm on Batu.
Yeah. You forget about the sticks. Yeah.
You see the great big box that you're going to be in for 2 days, but then you go, no, I'm on a spaceship. Which the confidence of an illusionist to show you it, you still fall for it, is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing is it is the encapsulation of Walt's vision. And that's what I've not heard anyone talk about this. That when Walt built the parks, he wanted you to step into movies. It was experiencing entertainment in that way. And it's taken them 100 years, but they've done it. And it's there. We've had these discussions since, like, well, what other property can you do it with? No. They can do it with Star Wars. Star Wars has allowed them to do it. You couldn't do it with Marvel. Unless it was Guardians of the Galaxy, you're on a spaceship.
Yeah.
But, like, who wants to be in Peter Parker's? Who wants to be in New York doing that experience?
No, not really. Yeah, sure.
You can go to those places. I guess maybe they could do it with the Princess franchise or Frozen, maybe. I mean, there's no side characters, there's no depth that they have in Star Wars. Go in. It's a quandary. It's almost depressing as a creative because it's a dream fulfilled by a company that have been trying to do this one thing for 100 years. They've done it. Now they don't know what to do with it. And it's almost like they're too early. And in like 20 years' time, everyone will say, oh, remember that Starcruising?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
We'll still be talking about it.
Probably. Well, you mentioned the in 20 years they'll still be talking about it. I mean, I was never lucky enough to go to the Adventurers Club at Pleasure Island when it was open. And there's still people who talk about that experience
100%.
today because, and to me, I think that was a very small microcosm of, it's not at all the same as Galactic Starcruiser, don't get me wrong, but the way they created an atmosphere and they encouraged people to come and play along with the way that you were supposed to be in a 1930s Explorer Club.
It had its own mythology.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's still being used today, obviously. But for something to inspire people like that, where they're still talking about it 20 years after it came out, and now they have something else that's, again, very similar as far as what it inspires in people like us. I think your insight's actually very, very important to think about. How can Disney, kind of do something with what they've got,
It's interesting to kind of just touch back with something you said, Phil, is the best, really succinct description of Galactic Starcruiser I really have ever heard is actually from you, Drew. It's a 2-day magic trick. And they sustain that trick.
Yeah.
And it's astounding to see, because what else can you even analog this to with Disney? There's never been a property that they have to keep you in it for 2 full days.
Right.
What's mad with Disney is that we have an ex-cast member friend now who worked over at Disneyland. He's a huge Star Wars fan. It's his life, And we were telling him stories of what we did, and he went, "Oh, I didn't know that's what it was."
Wow.
He worked for the company, and he didn't know. And he said, "Oh, I went to I thought I looked at stuff up at Flogs. I didn't know that's what you did. I didn't know it was that. I want to go now."
Wow.
But why? How doesn't now ex-employee? But how do employees not know what it is?
I believe every bit of that. I mean, I was talking with some family members this past weekend who were really huge Star Wars fans. They had no idea what Galactic Starcruiser was.
No.
And these people are like, they could quote every one of these films up and down, left and right. They had no idea what Galactic Starcruiser even is. So yeah, that's a problem.
Disney have got this weird thing with marketing of Star Wars, which is really odd for them, because Disney used to be, in the Mike Eisner days, all about synergy and almost like a 30 Rock kind of like joke kind of way.
Yeah.
Other, like Universal aren't scared of synergy. Like they'll put in everything. It baffles my brain that they have not put Batu in one of the TV shows. It's a set. They have it in California where they're filming the stuff. Why have they not? And it was closed for 2 years. Why would you not put Ewan McGregor in Batu and say, oh, they went there. It baffles my brain that they don't do it. But the reason they don't do it, and the only logical reason is they're so scared that the Star Wars fans will go, oh, they're just using this as a way to sell tickets to their theme park.
Oh, interesting.
Like, why at the end of Andor, they talked about Chandrila endlessly. Why at the end was Mon Mothma not just sat in the atrium of the Halcyon? It's like there for them to do it. And then people go, oh, that's that ship that I could go on. It's now in canon. It's in canon I've seen. But they've got this, like, almost like they're terrified of what the Star Wars public are going to say. Like, Andor was just a big 6 episodes marketing ploy for their crews. Universal aren't scared to do that. And it baffles my brain. Like, it hurts my brain from a marketing merchandise creator to see them have this thing and just go, oh, well, never mind. And not do the thing that everybody else, if they have that and the resources, would do. It's kind of like going to see a band and they don't play any of their new album. It's mad. It's just maddening at this point for me. Like, Nepharo in Mando could just be Batu.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's no reason why it isn't. And I was watching it today, and now I've watched it 3 times, thinking, oh, I wish it was. Like, I want to go there. Like, why is that not it?
Right. I want to go to that place.
It's just odd. Yeah, I want to go to that place.
You bring up an absolutely fascinating point that I have, because when they announced Galactic Starcruiser, I was afraid that they would do and suddenly, like, everything would be on board the Halcyon, and it would just be like everyone would be rolling their eyes because the Halcyon suddenly is everywhere, and they've gone completely the opposite. But something I've never once considered that's absolutely is like Mon Mothma just sitting in the atrium.
Yeah.
You don't even need to announce that it's the Halcyon.
Right.
You
Just
don't
show
need,
it.
You don't need the exterior shot. People would start talking about that themselves.
Or just her, like, at the end with her daughter walking on, like, from behind. You could even use doubles.
Yeah.
For that. You know, you don't even have to have the actors there. And just have them walking on, you know.
I've never considered
maybe like a blurry Captain Kevin in the background. You know,
that's it. It doesn't need to be a showy thing, which again, I'm all for. Let's put the Halcyon in something. Let's put Black Spire Outpost in something, please.
Besides the books and the comics but the easy stuff as well.
But you don't need to have it be like an in-your-face, my gosh.
No.
You could do it in such a cool, my God, that's the most amazing idea.
And it didn't occur to me, but yeah, it's like, it's right there.
It's right there. And again, they were already in Chandrila.
Sure.
Let's go.
So as a victim of corporate America, and if any of my coworkers are listening, I'm not talking about you, of course. But maybe the only thing that explains is maybe because Disney is obviously different divisions. Maybe there's jealousy between divisions. Well, I'm not going to use resorts and parks crown jewel because that's giving them credit and propping them up. I mean, I wonder if there's some inter-company drama that explains some of that. I don't know.
There's no good explanation in my mind. I mean, I get all the reasons. They're afraid that if it fails, then they got this dead end that they've talked about. Yeah, none of it makes sense to me.
Yeah,
put it in something. I mean, to me, it's a self-reinforcing loop to not put it in something.
Yeah.
So let's do. Gosh, that's a great idea, Phil.
Yep.
Okay, so let's circle back to Starcruiser.
Oh well, do we have to? I'd rather talk about corporate dynamics for a little while
I know.
longer. Yeah.
I was hearing the soap opera music in my head. So darn it, Drew. What was your favorite non-spoiler aspect of your voyage?
I want to say, like, the people, and that, like, goes for the guests that we were with and met, and the cast and the crew. I think there's something. It sounds so, like, cheesy, but they say at the end of the fireworks show, don't they, at the moment, like, you are the magic. Like, it's that, and that, like, coming together of magic, which I don't think I've ever experienced anywhere else ever, apart from maybe, like, the punk community, of that, like, all coming together to be like, this is one thing that we love. You know?
Yeah.
I just thought that was amazing. And the playing along, I thought, and being, like, playing as an adult, all together with other adults was a whole lot of fun. And I think that was the best part. And I think, if you could take those same people and just put them doing anything, it would have been a good time.
Well, and imagining that Wraith was keeping up with your poster artist backstory, and I'm sure that throughout the whole cruise, I don't know if any other characters kind of picked up on that, but to have that probably carry through the whole voyage must have been a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, and it kind of merged into guests as well.
That's cool.
Other guests were joined in. I mean, it's not spoiler territory because it's not story motivated at all. But one of my favourite moments was I was locked in the brig by the stormtroopers randomly at 3:30 when we were back on the ship before everything started. I was waiting for my wife to come out of the bathroom outside the Crown of Corellia, and they just took me and put me into the brig, and then she had to bust me out with that silly code and the running back and forth. But couldn't do it by herself, so she had to enlist other guests.
Oh, that's great.
To help break me out. And then when they eventually broke me out, we went and played Sabak together.
Nice.
Awesome.
In the bar with the as the prison breaks, which then later on, I hadn't spoken to Croy once the entire trip. And towards the end of the second day, he was doing some thing, going down to check on stormtroopers in the brig or whatever. And he got me and said, I want you to come with me, and took me up in the turbo lift. And he said, I just want to keep an eye on you. Gave the stormtroopers a dressing down in front of me about how, if they were to be locked in the brig, that's their fault. Maybe it's his fault for not being a good enough lieutenant. We stepped out of the lift and he looked at me and said, why are you here? And I said, well, you said I had to stay next to you, keeping an eye on me. He was like, yeah, but Phil, the thing is, I, like most people, are now sick of the sight of you. So, just please leave. And I looked at him and he was like, and I'm sure I'm not the first person that's told you that.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And I hadn't spoken to him at all, and I didn't speak to him again.
Well, why would you want to after that? Sure.
That really is, Croy in a nutshell.
Yeah,
my gosh.
That is.
But you said something that I'm kind of curious to ask you about further is I consider myself a people person. I like people. I like talking to people, but I can't think of another time when I've gone on vacation, much less an expensive vacation, where the other guests actually enhanced my experience.
Sure.
You actually mentioned that you were interacting with some of the other guests. Would you say that they actually enhanced your experience, or?
Yeah, and this is really weird. So I'm not particularly a people person in terms of I don't really want to interact with strangers on vacation. However, I think Disney is the exception to this. And my favourite memories of every Disney trip are not the attractions or the shows. It's seeing other guests and other moments. So we quite often talk about the time we were on a boat coming back from Disney Springs and a little girl insisted on feeding me French fries. Or talking about lightsabers with people, like having lightsaber fights in Batuu, or just other little interactions with other people or people watching, or funny things. So our favourite Disney moments of all time are, we were once heard someone say, Scrooge McDuck came out, and this man shouted, "Oh look, Donald's got his hat on," which we thought was hilarious.
Sure.
But then we realised Donald always has a hat on, so it's even funnier.
Yes.
So people have always made our Disney trips better, and I think Starcruiser was just amplified by that. And even the slightly annoying guests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a British thing, but that becomes an in-joke between me and my wife. So we'll be talking about, we will talk about those people more than we talk about the nice people.
Sure.
We'll just be like, oh, remember when that woman said that thing? That was funny. Or, so I think the guests, they elevate everything at those places. It's how can they not? It's amazing. I don't know if you ever watched the British version of The Office.
Oh, yes.
But there's a great line where Tim says, we're not friends. We're not meant to be friends. We're just a bunch of people walking around on the same piece of carpet every day. And that's the Starcruiser. No one on there would ever know. It's people from so different backgrounds and different things and beliefs and different countries. You'd never meet these people. And then all of a sudden you're in an experience where you're hiding Chewbacca from stormtroopers.
Yep. And you don't want him
with
to
a
get
lady
caught.
from Alabama.
Yeah, nice.
How can you not think that's the best thing that you've ever done?
That's awesome.
And also, that's what I loved. We were in full costume, but I loved the people. We had a guy on our trip who didn't like Star Wars. Amazing. And he's just walking around in his t-shirt and shorts and his flip-flops. And he kept saying, "Hey, where can I get a beer?" And I loved it. And he made my trip. Because we'd be doing something, and then he'd just walk past and be like, "I need to get a beer." And I just thought it was the funniest thing that, like, all these people in character trying to do a mission, and then this guy's just trying to dress. And I just thought, like, it's so good.
Do you know if he ever got his beer?
I saw him with his beer, yeah. It was
Okay,
great.
good.
I would have personally taken him to the Sublight Lounge and helped him get his beer.
Yes.
But also, this is an interesting thing, because, like, you see, like, people arranging, like, cosplay cruises and all this stuff, right? So, like, we had a moment, and it's a spoiler, but we were doing something in the gift shop, and there was some non-costume people in costumes there that they then removed from the shop to let us do the thing we were doing.
Oh, cool.
And we felt really special. If everyone was in costume, we all would have done it. But we didn't. So if we didn't have those people just walking around in their T-shirts and baseball caps, you wouldn't get the special moment. If you're all doing it properly, you don't stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made, and also we had nobody on our cruise, so it was even more amplified, because there was probably about 40 people in costume.
Oh, really? Wow.
So yeah, so it was even more that way. But, like, you know, that's super fun, right? Like, it's that kind of VIP feeling.
Yeah.
But, like, you need background characters in your story, but they were almost like the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's a
one
good way to
person
put
on
it.
our cruise actually thought I was a character because of my accent,
Mm-hmm.
and he kept asking me, like, "Oh, do they know you're on the ship?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, of course they do." And he was like, "Oh, well, and, like, talking, like, about me in front of him. And he was like, "Oh, you've not sent me any missions on the data pad." I was like, "Why would I? I'm a guest." And he was like, "Sure you are." And I was like, "Oh, no, this man thinks I'm part of the show. This is super awkward." But again, a great memory, because people are weird.
Yes.
And that's the best thing.
That's fabulous.
It really does bring out the best in people. I mean, you don't care where they're from. You don't care what their politics are. You don't care about people you would never talk to in real life. You're best friends on Star Cruiser, no questions asked. I love that.
Even the guy who wants to get a beer.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
the guy who wants to get a beer.
Well, if you could wave a magic wand and money's no object and you could do whatever you want, what would you like Disney to improve about the Galactic Star Cruiser experience?
100% the merchandise. Yeah, shocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking behaviour on their merchandise. Like, the team almost want to be ashamed of themselves for how they've dealt with it. I get it. Like, the Crown of Corellia stuff, like, kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
For the most part. The fact that they've not provided anything that anybody actually wants is so bizarre to me. Like, we made a list of items when we got off that we can't believe aren't things. So, like, everyone says the Gaia record would be the number one. And I think on a, like, transparent vinyl etched to look like a data tape.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, a 7-inch would be a really cool kind of thing. Things you've interacted with on the ship should be available to buy when you get off. So, like, data tapes, the gem, all that kind of stuff you should be able to buy.
Yeah.
When you leave, I can't believe Disney haven't got a Spirit jersey, a lounge fly bag, a set of ears, a Turvis tumbler, and all the things they sell with everything else they've ever done on. I cannot believe I couldn't get a Star Cruiser Spirit jersey. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing I would love them to do is, though, like, you know, when you go and you see the DVC merch,
Yeah,
that you can't buy because you're not a DVC member.
Mm.
The number one thing they should be doing is doing Star Cruiser merch that's available in Batu that everyone can see, but only Star Cruiser guests can buy.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Oh, wow.
So at the toy maker, they should have a Captain Kevin ragdoll and a Gaia ragdoll that only I can buy. And they should have a feature that only you can buy. They should have parts at Savvy's for Star Cruiser. They should have parts of the droid maker for Star Cruiser, or a personality chip. Just little things that then the general public will go, "Well, I want that. Why can't I get that?" And that's Disney kind of 101 to do that as well, which is really weird that they haven't done it. And then the other thing I would really like them to do is, so I thought about this a lot, and I think Andor has made this maybe more something, but when they first announced it and they said you're all going to get given a costume, I don't really need to do that necessarily, but I would like day one, they should give you a jumpsuit. So you have like a thing, and the day one should be much more like you deciding your path, kind of like when you go to like a college sampler to see like, oh, maybe I'm into the dark side, maybe I'm into this thing.
Right, yeah.
And it should be less pressure. But if they did a jumpsuit with Velcro, when you go to the two, you could buy patches and things to put onto it.
That's awesome.
To customize it. So you could get your scoundrel patch. You could have it so you have to show, like if they had a scoundrel store, a resistance store, a first order store, you could show things in the app and they could be like, oh, your Wraith's crew, here's this. You can buy this patch. And then you could start customize it. And then people that wanted to go all in could still bring costumes.
Sure.
And wear their own costumes later on. But I think if day one everyone was uniformed, you would get that kind of like Japanese idea of everyone working together and being more of a team, and less people being like, well, I didn't come as a full Twi'lek. I'm in my t-shirt looking for a beer.
Yeah.
And people would feel less bad. It would be a level playing field. So you could still do all your makeup and hair and costumes and how you want, but just that kind of day one kind of, and almost like an homage, and I think Andor was to like George Lucas's like first film.
Okay.
With the jumpsuit.
Yep.
I think that would be kind of cool. Like,
yeah, that would be cool.
Maybe like a grey jumpsuit, and you all start off kind of like when you have your player in a role-playing game, just your default look, and then you can go from there and customize it. And I think that would be my dream.
That would be pretty amazing.
I love to think about. I mean, this really isn't in video game terms. This is really smart. You start with nothing, and you have to level up.
Sure.
I absolutely love the fact that's a really fantastic idea for like an expansion of Starcruiser in the future. Of they could really kind of rework the experience. I love that idea.
I know I'd buy it.
I mean, well, like to go back to something Phil said, I mean, my veins in my head are popping from the lack of merchandise here. It's just confounding. But like Play Disney, the Play Disney app, they've got it right now where you can earn achievements in Batu and Galaxy's Edge. And if you get these 3 specific Galaxy's Edge achievements, you can take them to a store and get, not for free, you have to pay for it. But if you get the digital achievement on the app, you get to buy a physical pin representation of the badge.
Yeah.
And they're awesome. There's 3 of them. They're amazing. They look fantastic. Why don't they do that for the badges that you earn on Galactic Starcruiser? There's a whole series of digital badges that you earn on the Galactic Starcruiser Play Disney app while you're on the experience. The droids, you freed the droid, you helped the resistance, you helped the Saja. Every one of those has got a different badge. Why can't I buy a pin for all of those things? I mean, these are just layups in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because Disney does several things, and like for trivial things. So like for the festivals at Epcot, you do the scavenger hunt, you put the stickers on the map. You pay $5 and you get like a keyring at the end. But why do they not do it for the $5,000 experience that they've got? It's bad. It's like what they've done is they found a demographic with deep pockets. And because they've given the option to split rooms, it's people with deep enough pockets to do that, who would, in their minds, are going, well, I'm saving money, so I'll spend it on the ship. So they're getting your money no matter which way you cut it. Mm-hmm. You'll either drink the rest of the money or you'll spend it on souvenirs.
Yeah.
So they've got you in a corner. But it just blows my mind that, like, I can get a Festival of the Art Spirit jersey. I can't get a Starcruiser Spirit jersey. To me, that's so weird.
I'd be fascinated to see what the per cabin spending is for repeat voyages. I mean, I would imagine it goes down over time because people have gone. You look behind, there's nothing they sell really that we don't have after a couple voyages. So keep making stuff. I mean, that's if they like you mentioned, that was a really cool idea to have a limited. We've talked about the Gaia CD endlessly,
right?
But to have a really cool translucent limited edition one, what would we pay for that? I would pay a considerable sum.
A lot of people would, yes.
Yeah. I mean, come on. That's again, we adore, all 4 of us adore Galactic Starcruiser. It's like nothing else on the earth, but the lack of merchandise to me, I mean, if they want people to consider these real canon Star Wars characters, they got to start treating them like real canon Star Wars characters. And a huge piece of Star Wars is the merch. I mean, I want a Captain Keevan shirt. I don't want to buy it on the Starcruiser, but the minute I get off, I want to buy my Captain Keevan shirt.
Sure.
I mean, we had all these cool shirts growing up in the 70s and 80s, man. I want those shirts for these characters. I mean, start treating them like all the other characters.
But then it's like, it's a weird thing that that's how they're like not treating it. But it's also really weird because they focused massively in the merch they're selling of costume pieces, but their core demographic aren't buying them. I didn't buy one costume piece because we went in costume.
Right.
Like, why would I buy that when I'm there? And then repeat visitors are never going to buy those things unless you get into the high-end jewelry. Other than a lightsaber, they haven't got anything that's like a high ticket item. But they're not doing like one of the easiest things they should be selling is a suitcase. A Chandrilla Starline suitcase.
Oh, that's a good point. Sure.
The person comes off going, I wish I had another suitcase. I would have bought one. It was a nice like silver or white suitcase with the logo on, that would have been a no-brainer.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
To me.
You're the first person we've ever heard say that. And now I can't get that out of my head.
Now I want it. I want it really bad.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah, it is.
Well, kind of moving on to I think we're about to open the spoiler gates. Is everyone okay with talking spoilers?
Indeed, opening the spoiler gates. So if you don't like spoilers, of course, this is the time of the podcast where you might want to tune away.
Come back after you've been on Galactic Star Cruiser, because here we go. Spoilers are hot. So Phil, if you could kind of let's chat about what path you took on your first voyage.
All of them, apart from the First Order.
Nice.
Wow.
We did all of them apart from First Order and Sammy's missions. Sammy's finale, which is mad. So we did Lenka fully, the Resistance missions with Lenka. We did the Sarja fully. Sandro and Wani, we were at most of that situation.
Oh, nice.
We did Sammy's bridge missions. And we did a bunch of captain stuff. And then we kept getting invited to the captain's things, but they kept conflicting with other stuff.
Sure.
Like lightsaber training. So like we got like the little shoulder taps from the captain, but we just couldn't do everything. But we still did like as much as possible with the captain. And then we did the heist as well.
Oh, nice.
Wow. I think this might actually have been a real benefit from not having a full complement of passengers on, because it did open up, because some of these experiences during the voyage are capped by participant. Kind of, if there's too many people on, they do shut off certain things to walk-ins. So wow, you really did kind of complete the bingo card.
Yeah, it's we knew we didn't want to do any of the Croy stuff going in because we're not First Order people. And when we got there, I made a beeline for the Sarja and had it worked into my backstory. I had a yellow Kyber crystal tattoo because I moved Planet Array, and showed it to Ben Runa, who was our Sarja. And then she just was like, got us involved in everything.
Oh, that's great.
To do their stuff.
Incredible.
And then when we was the muster, after the muster, the captain's reception, Lenka had nobody talking to her. So we went up to her, and at the end of the cruise, she actually said, "You were the first people I spoke to on this journey."
Wow.
We were talking to her, and then Rafe interrupted and got us involved in his missions, gave us his card. Rafe didn't leave us alone for the entire voyage. So we ended up getting pulled into so much weird and wonderful things. We didn't really interact with Sammy a great deal until the very end. But then Sandro, again, every time he sat down and we tried to have like 2 minutes, just to breathe, Sandro was there with another thing that we were doing.
Oh, that's fun.
Asking our advice about something or just talking to us. So I think we had like I think it's the low capacity, but we did things that I've not heard anybody else talk about, and things that it was just us, like just the two of us. Like, for example, we may try to make notes, but we failed miserably. So we don't remember how we got into this situation, but I remember Rafe does something on the data pad.
Okay.
And it's about the Halcyon or the data tapes, where you help him get them. Mm-hmm. And I replied back, only if it's beneficial to the Resistance. And then he popped out of the elevator and was like, "Come with me." Like, as soon as I tapped it, like, it was insane. He was like, "Phil, Charlotte, come with me." And he took us into engineering. And Lenka and Chewbacca were in there. And we negotiated the Halcyon deal.
Oh, that's great.
Which I read today on Discord. People think it's Gaia that does it. But we did it, and we had to deal with the three of them and work out that like they'd get this cut and that cut, and we can't tell Hondo about Rafe because he's got history there, and keep this quiet. And Alenka was willing to turn a blind eye to the heist and what Rafe was doing in exchange for the Calaxian, and we had to work out like an amount of money that we could offer for it, which weirdly was the remaining money was the money that the Sarja had for the crate when we got the crate.
Oh, that's great.
From like their budget. So there's a huge like lumps of story that I don't know if they're put into it when there's less people, or it's ad-libbed, but I've not heard anyone say, "Oh, in an engineering with Lenka, Rafe, and Chewbacca by myself."
That's awesome.
Wow.
And huge, like a story beat that nobody else saw. So it was like solely for the two of our benefit. And there was just a lot of moments like that we had that were just strange moments. Just one-on-ones. It was wonderful. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Oh, that's amazing.
The depth of the story, the fact that they've got all these amounts that tie into each other, and it's actually got a big overall story behind the story. It's 4D chess.
Yeah, and the fact that you're mentioning it, Phil, I'm sure they have done those moments before, but again, it's not something that they can have for everyone because they can't bring everybody down to negotiate. I mean, that would just get a little unwieldy. So
we have seen them actually switch out characters, for like some of these side things that they do with people. We've seen it with people where sometimes it's this character, sometimes it's that character doing the same thing.
We had it ourselves where Sammy got replaced by Link in the middle of our...
Right in the middle of it, in fact. But this is great, Phil, to have those three characters to yourselves. That's the trifecta.
Yeah.
There was also really strange, the bond we made with the actors that we had, to now them being friends on social media, which is strange.
Yes.
Wonderful. But when we were towards the end of the second night, we were following Lenka, was like, "Oh, meet me here for this thing." And there was like a group, too many people. And we hadn't interacted with Sammy at all. And she said, "Oh, I think some of us should go off with and help Sammy. Phil Charlotte, would you like to do that?" And we were like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess." And then she was like, winked us to be like, "Well, this will benefit you. Go and do something with Sammy. Like, if you've come to the end of the road of my time,
Yeah.
go and do spread your wings.
Fly, little bird, fly."
And then, like, one of the weirdest moments was before everything goes wrong at the end, we went out just for some air to the climate simulator, and we were watching Sarja Grayson do the balancing the stones. I don't know if you've seen pictures of this. It's insane that he does that. Like, I thought it was magnets. He's just balancing those stones. It's absolutely insane. We're watching him do that. And then Sandro came out because he was everywhere we were to come talk to us about life. And then we were sat there, and all of a sudden Sammy ran in and looked at my wife and went, oh, thank goodness, Charlotte, you're safe. Quick, we've got to go, because all the alarms have started going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, why does he care about you so much? Like, this is weird. And Charlotte was like, oh, when you were doing, because we were separated for the Sarja finale, she was like, oh, when you were in yours, I did this thing with Sammy. I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, so odd. Like, yeah, it was so weird to have like such, like, when they say your name is just weird, full stop, and wonderfully weird.
Yeah.
But we were like included in everything. It was so like odd, like almost like the star pupils. Just like everywhere we went, they were like, "Oh, come with me, come do this thing." Like we didn't have 1 minute to ourselves.
Well, except for that time that Sammy locked you in the brig so he can spend some time with your wife. But it's okay. It was perfectly innocent. Perfectly innocent.
Yeah, I forgive him.
Well, that's the thing that's so difficult too, is that when you have those moments and you're just so excited and you're like, this is awesome, this is fantastic. And then you get off the ship and you're like, we had such a great time. Do you remember that Wait, did we do that?
Did we do that? Yes.
Like,
I so wish that we had a recorder just on all. That's what I'll do for my costume. I'll put a camera on. I'll just record everything.
You need a GoPro.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so hard when you're trying to go back. We did a whole episode, Phil, where we went back and we were trying to piece together like every not to the minute, but like every moment that we had on our first voyage. And it was amazing how many things we couldn't remember, or that one of us thought one thing and somebody thought another thing. And it was insane.
Yeah,
it was absolutely crazy.
And we didn't release that episode because there was no reason to put people through that.
It makes you rethink history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've had exactly the same thing. And I looked at my notes the other day. I was like, oh, that's not what happened.
Right.
They were like the notes I made the minute I got off. I was like, write down everything. And then looking at it, I was like, no, that's not right. But that was like the first night. I remember just laying in bed trying to go through. I couldn't get to sleep because my brain wouldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was replaying it all in my head. And it's really sad. Like, I'm trying to replay it in my head like every day so I don't forget it.
Yeah.
I'm consciously sitting and being like, right, I need to just think about those memories again because they'll go and they'll be gone. And it'll be like when C-3PO's like, oh, I'm just looking at my friend's one last time.
Right.
And I was like, oh no, it's all going to disappear. And I just, want to keep it like pure.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking with one of our listeners once, and she said something just so beautiful. She's like, you'll forget what the character said. You'll never forget how that character made you feel.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Hi, Future Drew here. I just wanted to break in really quickly to let you know that in the segment coming up, Phil was kind enough to share a very memorable and very personal story about their life and how their galactic Starcruiser voyage and the cast and crew aboard helped them achieve a good amount of healing. If you want to avoid a story that could stir up some emotions that you might not want to feel at the moment, go ahead and skip forward about 3 minutes.
Yeah, we had a moment with this, and I'll try to get through this without crying. So me and my wife found out before we booked the cruise that we're both infertile, and we've been trying to get pregnant for 4 years. So we have had quite heavy hearts in the prep for this entire thing, and almost to the point of not looking forward to it. And we'd had back and forth with the NHS here about the area we're in doesn't fund it. So we had applied to another area where I used to live to get funding. And I woke up to a text message the morning of the Starcruiser to tell us we'd denied the funding to go through with it. So we were like, in tears. And we, in the words of Louise' mum, we had a cry, dust ourselves off, and got on with the show. And we got to the Starcruiser, we were trying to put it all to the back of our minds. And I was talking to, so hard to say, I was talking to Ben Runa, and I've told the actress this, and she's talking about my Kyber crystal tattoo, and it appeared on my arm. I'm an artist, I have these visions of stuff. And she said, do you know what this means? There's hope. And I was standing there looking at this lady's face who's playing a character, and like your brain's like doesn't let you think that. And I'm trying not to cry talking to her.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, she must think I'm such a weirdo. She said she said one thing to me, and I'm in tears over it. But her words meant so much to me. And then, like, when we were leaving, we had a moment, which I'll talk about later, with her and Rafe. And she said, or Rafe, one of them said, I think maybe Rafe said, you two will always be okay because you have each other. And I was just like in pieces, trying, like, you're trying to hold back the tears. But these actors, and I've reached out to all of them, told them this, they are, without sounding sappy, doing God's work. And like the healing that they gave us was more than $5,000 worth of therapy could ever give us, because it felt for the first time that they understood, but they weren't to know. And it was the best thing we could have done in that situation.
I'm so glad you were able to share that with them, because I'm sure that means that, well, we heard Sage talk about how he was performing and how much it meant to him to perform and have those moments. And, you're not going to see a Broadway performer go up and do a show and then find out that they were part of somebody's therapy or some of their healing. That's amazing.
Yeah, you see it all the time in like Disney stuff, and we've seen, and you know, been unfortunate enough to see the Make-A-Wish kids and things, but you don't think it's going to happen to you, that magic is going to be there when you need it.
Yeah,
and it was like more than anyone. And I don't want to say the actress's name on here, but Fenrina's like more than anything. Her and Al Sandro and Al Rafe and Lenka, the things that they just said were just so poignant to what we needed to hear from people. When, like, literally, like 3 hours before we did it, we were the lowest we've ever been.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. And I don't think, like, I hope they know.
You do hope that they know, and there's not really a good medium or even the right words to explain to them sometimes.
Sure.
What they do for you.
Mm-hmm. We have heard specifically that they have, after a cast member gets off shift, that they've got basically a service that helps them transition to reality, just because what they do is so emotional, and they do have to believe the storylines for a certain extent to be able to provide exactly what every guest needs.
Yeah.
And they do that every single day for us.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. They go through these emotions, this roller coaster for us.
Yeah.
So these people that are like, it's just a job. Yes, it is a job.
Sure.
But this is an emotional, really difficult thing that they do. And I can't give them enough credit. I can't.
Yeah, Jason Keller.
Yes.
He posted on Instagram recently that, in the year, the coincidentally, it was their year anniversary today, I think.
Yes.
And Jason posted, hey, through 20,000 guests, he's interacted with 20,000 people. And I'll bet you he knows the names of at least 18,000 of those people.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And,
I wouldn't doubt it.
18 of those 1,000 people think that they were Wraith's best friend.
Yep. 20,000. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
So, because you were lucky enough to be able to interact with so many of the characters, did you have a favorite character?
Yeah, I think the three. I think like Fenn, Sandro, and Rafe stole our hearts completely. We were not interested in doing Rafe's missions at all because every single person we know did them.
Right.
And like most of our friends who did it early on only did Rafe. So everything I've seen is like either the guys from Fake the Maker or Dano or you guys, Rafe heavy. So I was like, well, I know that. I know the story enough to not be interested in doing it. I want to see the rest of it. I want to see the Jedi stuff. I want to see the Resistance stuff. I had no one talks about the Resistance stories. So I was like, I want to do that stuff. I want to do Lenka especially, because I'd kind of seen Sammy because of Sage being so present on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I kind of see that. And also like Koi and Sammy are like the kid characters, right? That the kids follow around for the most part. They're like kids seem to gravitate towards those two characters. So I was like, well, let's manage our expectations that we'll try and do Sarja and we'll try and do Lenka and the captain, because I've not really heard any of that stuff. And then there's just something about the way the Wraith we had, the way he looked at us, like he knew you.
Yep.
It was so weird. It was like we had Ben look at us with this like love and compassion in her face every time she spoke to you, and this warmth. And then Sandro talks to you like you're his best friend, and there's got this kind of like puppy dog energy. And then Rafe's got that, it's a charm. And so the three of them, I guess their different personalities, just was our trip. Yeah. I just fell in love with all three of them.
What was your favorite moment, and spoilers included for this, if you had to pick one?
My favorite moment's Mad, and it's barely even to do with Starcruiser. It's like the story and it's never going to be said again, which is so weird. The last at the end, like when after the fireworks, everyone's standing around for like kind of like a meet and greet.
Yeah.
Everyone had left, like, and gone to bed. So we were in the atrium going around getting pictures with everyone, with no one else. It was
Wow.
very strange.
Wow.
And we went up to Rafe and we just said, "Oh, can we get a hollow scan with you?" And, of course you can. And we were doing funny poses and things. And he said, "Oh, I know you guys say you're artists and you're resistance, but you wear the fingerless gloves. And you were pretty handy on the heist." And we were like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "So, are you in?" And we were like, "In for what?" As we said it, then Runa walked up to say goodbye to us. And he looked at her and said, "One more time." And she was like, "No." And he was like, "Look, Finn and Charlotte are in." And we'd got hot shot on gunners on the Falcon. And Rafe kept calling us the hot shots. He was like, the four of us will be the hot shots. Come on. He's like, and it will interest you because Wonnie's cousin has told me that there's a supply of ice kyber on Hoth and we can take it. So he's like, good for the Sergeant. And she was like, look, and she said, well, I don't have a glove. So I took off one of my gloves and gave it to her. And then we took a photo of our four hands touching.
Oh, cool.
Like down.
Yeah.
And it's my lock screen on my phone. It's like our four hands.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she said, okay, cool. So she was like, the three of us will meet you on Hoth, right? And he's like, I'll be there. And we walked away and went down to the dessert party to see Sandro play. Because we'd helped him write his song, because we were the only people doing his part, I think. And as we walked away, I said, Charlotte, well, that's the best gift we've been given, the best souvenir we've been given, a sequel.
Yes. That's so great.
Mad, right?
Yes.
And we'd made friends with another guest called Rusty. We went to the dessert party, he was sitting by himself, and we said, do you mind if we sit with you? We looked around, there was one other table watching Sandro and Wonnie's show. It's how quiet the cruise was. And I said to Rusty, now we're not in character, it's the end. What was your favourite moment? And he said, well, it's really strange, but my favourite moment was when Rafe boarded the ship, he walked past Fen, and she said to him, not this time, I'm out. And I wanted to prod that, so I asked her what that was about, and she said she used to work for him, was part of his crew.
Oh.
And she'd got in trouble for slicing and was in danger with a bounty hunter, I think. Or I don't know the full story because it's kind of rude, Rusty. And she had escaped to the crew and become a sergeant. But she feels bad because she had left Rafe and done a deal so she could escape, but it compromised him. And then he said, well, I wanted to prod that further, so I spoke to Rafe about it and told him how bad she felt. And he said, well, that's not what happened. It was me. I sliced her out and she left. I wanted her to leave. I wanted her a better life for her.
Oh, that's cool.
And what we realised is day one, 5 minutes into experience, or an hour into experience, Rusty had got the beginning of that story. We got the end of it. Rusty only knows the end because we told him. We only know the beginning.
Because he told
Because
you.
Rusty told us. So when he said to us, are you back in? We were like, oh, that was a weird thing to say. She's a sergeant. But she's not a sergeant. She's an ex-scoundrel. That's part of the crew.
That's
So
great.
it all makes
Wow.
sense. That's why she's back in. Yeah, so it was kismet to have those conversations. But those two actors don't know that we knew Rusty or we were going to become friends with him to make that story happen. It's insane.
Oh, that's fabulous.
I'm covered in goosebumps right
Yes.
now. Just like literally,
that's
to
great.
the core. That's Galactic Starcruiser.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Wow. Wow. And wow.
Yeah, so that was my favourite moment. That and Ray saying my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, so how did that end up happening? How did you interact with Ray that she ended up saying your name?
So it was so weird, right? So we'd done loads with Ben Runa, and me and Charlotte got separated for our holocron experiences. So I went in with the other actress, who I lose her name, but she's also a Ray.
Okay.
And I was in her moment. And was it on the way to it? Yeah, it was on the way to it. Sammy we'd done the bridge. I was in a different bridge. So I did Sammy's bridge, and Charlotte did Keevan's bridge, I think. So we did the two separate bridges to each other for the resistance. I came up Sammy's thing. Everyone left. He kind of hung back to talk to me and Rusty, our friend. And he was just talking to me about like nonsense, like absolute nonsense, and his nerves and how scared he was of him. I said, "Oh, you got this, man. You're the best there is." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, great." Kind of just making up small talk, like killing time. And we walked towards the staircase because I was going to meet Charlotte, who was coming up the sergeant thing. And Ray came up the stairs, and she was like, "Oh, Sammy, I've got this like pump thing." I was talking to him, and then she looked at me. She was like, "And you're Phil. The sergeant told me about you."
Oh, that's great.
So we're in good hands. And I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." Like that she said that, like odd. And then I met Charlotte. She came out of her holocron thing, and she said, "Oh, I had Finn Runa do the thing." And when I got there, she was like, "Where's Phil? Why is he not here?" And she was like, "Oh, he had it earlier." And she was like, "Oh, that's not right. He should have been in this one." And so I think it maybe had been arranged that, like Ray talks to someone in the holocron experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if like they were going to pick me to be the person to talk to, and then because I wasn't there, they'd redirected Ray to do something with me, because I'm very clearly a fan of Ray, and we've talked about how much I love her to anyone.
Yeah.
And I do think that they're listening to you. There's definitely something in there, in something that they can hear you, and they're feeding things back. Because there's like, I didn't tell one person it was my birthday. When we were on there, we didn't put it on our booking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ordered a drink from the bartender said to me, "Happy birthday."
Oh, cool. That's great.
Yeah, which is, so they must be something that they can hear what you're saying. Because before Ray said that to me, I'd had a conversation with a guest because they were just talking out of character and about, "Oh, who's your favourite Star Wars character?" So, "Oh, mine's Ray." And I went on a passionate rant about how much I love her. And then I went into the bridge training. And when I came out, that was what happened.
Oh, that's great.
So I don't know if maybe something is being listened to, or there's the only other thing is that there's people that are plants, and some of the non-costume people walking around aren't guests.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have heard that.
Yeah.
They might be plants, because there's obviously the person that controls SK doesn't do anything for a day and a half because SK is bolted. So I wonder if they then just mingle to overhear things. Because that's my only criticism of the whole thing, is it really annoys me that SK is bolted for the entire experience. Because if you don't interact with SK at the muster,
Yep.
that's it.
That's it.
He's gone. And that's the tip that most people aren't sharing, is like, make sure you get a picture of SK, and because like a little girl tried to get a picture with him at our holocron thing, and he turned around because they don't want you going near him again.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that, because we were saying like today, because all we do is talk about Starcruising now, is that it would have been cool to have like, we should have had like a person in a protocol droid that was like interrupting the captain and injecting humour, and then they bolted that droid, and there was just a statue there that they swapped it out with the person in the costume.
Right.
And then SK could still roam around. But it's really sad that like SK's gone. I thought that was like the only disappointment I had was like, oh, that's it. And if you don't do the holocron thing, you'd never see him again.
That's it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's a real shame. But then like that's weird, because like just don't have it in the story that he goes off with Ray. Just have him out at the end.
Right.
It seemed like a missed opportunity. It just seemed like them. I don't know if it's maybe a crowd control thing, or they're scared he's going to get pushed over, or what it is. But that's the only thing that was weird. But yeah, Ray saying your name is, all of the characters saying your name is the best thing ever. It's so weird.
Yeah, I may have to be just Drew for Voyage 3. I mean, hearing you talk about this, Phil, just makes me go, you know what? I already have a good name. That'll work for me.
Yeah, we were lucky because Phil and Shah are Star Wars names. They're on Wikipedia. There's like characters with those names, so they're like,
Nice.
we have those.
Well, tell you what, this has been one of our favorite discussions ever about Galactic Star Cruiser. I mean, people think, how much can one person talk about Galactic Star Cruiser? And every single person we have come on tells us something we've never heard.
Yep.
That nobody's ever heard. Because it's literally, there are things that happen that only you've seen when you're on your voyage. So thank you so much, Phil, for taking the time, especially, early AM
yes.
with us. And, if anyone wanted to follow you on the web, where could they find you?
Oh, just at HE Creative, or He Creative, as Americans say. On Instagram mainly. We're on Twitter, but that's a cesspool.
Right.
We don't tweet anything, so
yeah.
Pointless. But yeah, we're on Instagram, and then you can find our website through there, and then buy Starcruiser inspired artwork to your heart's content.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Phil. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
You guys are welcome. It's lovely being speaking to you.
May the stars light your way.
How do we keep finding these amazing interviews?
We are just so lucky.
We are. That was, again, as you said, Martin, I've never heard several of those moments from anybody else that we've talked with.
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Star Cruiser people are the best people.
Indeed, no question about it. And maybe it's because they've gone on the Star Cruiser, and that just brings something out in a person.
And it's just incredible to me what an emotional experience Star Cruiser is. It means different things to different people. And it's just, I can't think of anything else that really touches people in this deep and profound way.
Because there isn't. I haven't experienced it yet.
And not only does it touch people, it changes people. It changes people. When you get off the Star Cruiser, you are not the same person you were when you got on.
Well, Christine, if people wanted to find us on the internet, how would they do so?
On Instagram, you can find us on Heroes of the Halcyon. On Twitter, you can find us at Halcyon_Heroes. We are posting within our May 3rd voyage on Facebook. You can email us, of course, at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com. Don't forget Patreon at patreon.com/heroesofthehalcyon and subscribe to YouTube. We're continuing to upload our past episodes as well as some of our video episodes. We've got another one coming up soon, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything.
Well, the Halcyon always needs heroes, and it's always fun shooting the poodoo with all the Star Cruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast. Tabuite!